They didn't even ask my name, just pointed. "Delivery's in the back, sweetheart," said the front desk woman, not even looking up from her screen. She tapped her acrylics once more and tilted her head toward a dingy hallway marked Service. Access only. I paused, not out of confusion, out of habit. That 1-second breath I'd taught myself to take before responding to disrespect. Before swallowing the heat of it. "Sure," I said, voice light. "No problem." I didn't bother correcting her, didn't flash my badge or pull out credentials, didn't mention the 7-figure investment I'd wired just 2 weeks ago, or the keynote speech I was scheduled to give on the 72nd floor in precisely 45 minutes. I just nodded, wheeled my black carry-on behind me, and followed the signs to the freight elevator. The hallway smelled like wet cardboard and burnt coffee. Fluorescents buzzed overhead like they were trying to quit. A custodian with headphones gave me a polite nod as I passed. He had that look, the look I used to carry every time someone assumed I didn't belong. The freight elevator doors groaned. Open. I stepped inside, alone. No glass walls, no soft music, just exposed pipes, scratched metal, and the distant clatter of a loading dock. I checked my watch. 7:42 a.m. The event started at 8 GUGS, and I was right on time, just not in the way they expected. Rewind, the email had been clear. "Welcome, Dr. Renee Marshall. We're honored to host you as our keynote speaker for this year's Elevate Tech Summit. Check-in begins at 7:30 a.m. at the main lobby of the Weston and Grange Building, First Avenue. Security has your name." My name. The same name engraved in gold on the conference banners. The same name that funded 40% of the startup accelerator sponsoring this summit. But see, they didn't see Dr. Renee Marshall this morning. They saw a black woman in plain sneakers, no makeup, and a puffer coat in June. They saw what they wanted to see. The freight elevator bumped once and rattled upward. Floor 10, floor 23, floor 41. I watched the numbers tick slowly, calmly, as the air shifted from basement chill to conference center climate control. When the doors opened, I was greeted with a wall of glass, light pouring in through panoramic windows and people in branded lanyards already sipping hotel coffee and stacking swag bags. A young blonde intern glanced at me and immediately reached for the event manual, scanning pages fast. I smiled at her. "Morning," she blinked. Are you with catering?" I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the registration booth. The woman behind it barely glanced up. "If you're dropping something off, we're asking vendors to check in down..." I reached into my coat pocket and slid my ID across the table. She read it. Then read it again. Then her eyes jumped to the conference program on the stand beside her. The name at the top, Keynote, Dr. Renee Marshall, Rebuilding Tech with Purpose. "Oh," she whispered. I gave her a polite nod. "Don't worry," I said, voice smooth as silk. "I know my way around, and I did, because this wasn't my first time being mistaken, but it would be the last time they forgot who I was." The woman at the registration booth kept blinking like her contact lens slipped. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. Just this soft, breathy gasp, like she realized she'd made a very expensive mistake. I gave her time. People like her always need a few extra seconds when the picture doesn't match the frame they built in their heads. I leaned forward and gently took back my ID. "You said the green room was on 70, I asked. She snapped out of it like she'd been yanked. Yes, Dr. Marshall, I'm so sorry, it's fine." I didn't need the apology. That wasn't what this moment was for. I turned, walked slowly, took in the space. The atrium was flooded with tech bros and brand sponsors, tight fades, navy suits, and too loud laughter. Their conversations rose like static, peppered with buzzwords: disruption, pivot, funded, seed round. Most of them didn't look my way. but a few glanced over with that same quick calculation, trying to place me. Maybe a late intern, maybe HR, maybe someone's wife. Not one of them imagined I was the reason they had gift bags. A security guard blocked my path near the elevator to the higher floors. "Sorry, these levels are for staff and speakers only." I showed him the same ID. His eyes went wide. Then he stepped aside without another word. I stepped in. Pressed 70, and the elevator doors closed on his silence. The green room was empty when I arrived, just a few chilled water bottles on the table and one of those half-hearted fruit trays with too much cantaloupe. I set my bag down and exhaled slowly. The room had a mirror, and I looked in it, not to fix anything, but to remind myself what they always forget. People like them never imagine power wears sneakers. They don't see a keynote in braids or brilliance wrapped in brown skin and unbothered calm. But what they miss most, what costs them the most, is mistaking quiet for absence. I changed jackets. Nothing fancy, a clean tailored navy. Blazer, no logo, no name badge. Just presence. My phone buzzed. A text from Monica, my assistant. "All set. Your shares cleared. Building transfer final as of 6:59 a.m. I smiled. Good. They would learn today. 15 minutes later, I stood backstage listening to the host do her warm-up act. "Welcome to Elevate Tech 2025. We're so excited. Thank you to our sponsors." The lights dimmed, music swelled, and the announcer read my bio. Only now did the room finally realize the woman they'd overlooked was the reason they were here. I walked out, applause trailing in soft confusion. I paused at the podium, scanned the crowd, and opened my talk with 5 quiet words. I came in through freight. Dead silence. I was told that's where deliveries go. I suppose they thought I was carrying someone else's vision. A few uneasy chuckles, one gasp, no laughter. But let's talk about what we carry when we build in rooms not built for us. And just like that, the real speech began. The ballroom was frozen. Not literally, but in that strange, stunned hush that only happens when someone's ego gets caught without its shoes on. I let the silence breathe. Let it marinate. Because sometimes silence says more than claps ever. I want to talk about perception," I continued, steady now, "about how often it replaces truth." I clicked the remote in my hand, and the screen behind me shifted from my name and credentials to a photo, grainy, low-res, clearly, taken that very morning. It was me standing in the service hallway, carry-on bag in one hand, other hand pressing the freight elevator button. A small sign reading "Authorized Personnel Only" glowed above my head. A ripple moved through the crowd like wind through dry grass. "I asked myself," I said, turning toward them, "what exactly about me this morning said not worthy of the front door? Was it the coat, the shoes, the silence?" More shifting in seats. A few folks lowered their eyes. I smiled but didn't soften. "I've sat on boards where I was mistaken for the assistant. I've built apps used by 20 million people, but was told I speak well for my background. And this morning, I was. Told deliveries go in the back." I looked toward the front row where the sponsor executives sat rigid in their blazers, suddenly remembering who signed their check. "But let me be clear," I said calmly. "I didn't take the back way. In because I had to. I took it to remind myself how many people are still told that's the only way." A man in a grey suit in row 3 clapped, nervously, too early. No one joined him. I let the quiet return. Then I pivoted, smooth and unbothered, into the actual keynote. The audience didn't expect it to be good. They expected it to be tolerable, motivational, neatly digestible. What they got instead was razor-sharp data, personal receipts, and a blueprint for rebuilding tech infrastructure to serve the communities it forgets. I broke down hiring gaps, bias in seed funding, and how diversity metrics were often polished to impress shareholders, not to create lasting equity. I even named names, not out of spite. Out of fact, the energy in the room flipped from discomfort to awe. People leaned forward, pens flew across notepads, and slowly those who hadn't looked at me twice in the lobby started to see me. I didn't need their validation, but I saw the shift when it came. The difference between someone tolerating your presence and finally realizing they never should have doubted it. After the last slide, I stepped down. No applause at first, just that breathless, blinking silence again. Then it came like a slow rain, hands clapping, murmurs, half-standing ovations. I walked past them all, no rush. My bag was still waiting backstage. My exit wasn't hasty. I passed the front desk on my way out. Same woman. Same seat, this time she stood. I'm so sorry about this morning, she blurted out. I didn't know where. I stopped, looked at her calmly. You will next time. She nodded, eyes full of shame she hadn't even processed yet, and then I said the line that would stick. Don't worry, you'll be seeing more of me. I just finalized the paperwork this morning. She blinked. What paperwork? I smiled. I own the building now. By the time I made it down the marble steps and into the sunlight, my name was trending on LinkedIn. Not that I needed it to. Monica texted again. Your email's blowing up. Press wants comment. Building management asking to schedule a call. Do you want me to respond? No, let them sit with it. I didn't need interviews or headlines. The real message had already landed. In that room, on those faces, in that shift of air the moment they realized the elevator they tried to send me down wasn't strong enough to hold me. I stepped into the back seat of the waiting car. My driver Malik glanced in the rear view and grinned. You do the thing? I nodded once. I did the thing. He chuckled, pulled out into traffic. You looked like a ghost in that coat, walking in there all quiet. I was like, they have no idea. They didn't. But I bet they do now. Upstairs, while I rode in silence, the fallout began. The sponsor table that had laughed too loud, suddenly very still. 3 of them had already sent me LinkedIn requests before I even finished the Q&A. The building's head of leasing, a man named Paul, who once tried to explain commercial real estate to me like I hadn't owned a portfolio since 2012, was frantically searching his inbox. The deed transfer had come through at dawn. He'd just missed the fine print. And the woman at the front desk. She was staring at her monitor, blinking hard, rereading the internal building newsletter. Please welcome our newest ownership partner, Dr. Renee Marshall, founder of Equity Forward Capital and lead investor in Western Grange Holdings. She spelled it out in bold. Meanwhile, I was already thinking 10 steps ahead. Ownership wasn't the goal, it was the stage. This building was a symbol, all chrome and glass and gatekeeping. A place where black and brown folks delivered the coffee, fixed the plumbing, vacuumed the conference rooms but never stood at the podium. Until today, I wasn't just going to own it. I was going to change who felt safe walking through the front. That afternoon, Monica and I met in the quiet upstairs lounge, now reserved for partners. She wore her usual black-framed glasses and the same calm efficiency I'd trusted for a decade. She opened her tablet. You sure you want to do this? She asked. Absolutely. We'll lose tenants. Then we'll find better ones. She smiled and pulled up the plans. First initiative? A scholarship incubator floor. Discounted leases for local founders from historically excluded communities. Second, a full renaming. No more Western and Grange. It would be the Marshall Building by month's end. Monica looked at me. Think they'll complain. They already are, I said, but not loud enough to matter. 3 days later, I asked Malik to drop me off at the side entrance. He hesitated. You sure? Positive. Same weather, same coat, same bag. But the energy in my spine was different now. Not because anything had changed about me, but because now they knew. The freight hallway was still dim, same peeling paint, same busted vending machine humming like it hadn't worked since Obama's first term. The same janitor was pushing a mop. He looked up, then straightened when he saw me. "Oh, you're the lady from the conference." "Dr. Marshall," I said gently, offering my hand. He wiped his palm on his jumpsuit and shook it with wide eyes. "I saw your talk on my phone. You made that whole place freeze up." I smiled. "How long you been working here?" 8 years, 3 contracts, no benefits. They always say next fiscal cycle." I nodded. "Not anymore." He blinked. "Ma'am, I own the building now." Then I handed him a card with Monica's number. "New contracts start next month. Better pay. Full health care. We're building a fund for staff training too. If you ever wanted to do something else, now's the time." His eyes shined and he looked away like the emotion was too heavy to carry in one moment. "You came back," he whispered. "I never left," I replied. "I just stopped waiting to be let in." Upstairs, press waited outside the glass walls of the new ownership suite. They wanted quotes, angles, headlines. "Black woman buys downtown tech tower. Dr. Renee Marshall makes history in Silicon Skyline freight elevator to fortune." The story goes viral, but I wasn't doing it for virality. I wasn't doing it for applause. I was doing it because too many of us got left in the basement. One of the reporters asked, "What made you come back through that entrance again? Was it symbolic?" I paused, glanced at the corridor behind me, then met her eyes. "No," I said. "It was real. I wanted the people back there to know we didn't forget them." That afternoon, Monica forwarded a flurry of emails, old colleagues who used to forget to CC me on strategy decks, investors who once called me aggressive for asking too many questions, even a former boss, the same one who told me I was not the right face for the front pitch team, now asking if I'd consider joining his board. I didn't reply to most, but to him I wrote one line. "I'm happy to acquire you. That's the only seat I'm offering." It came in a thick ivory envelope, no return address, hand-delivered to the front desk with the kind of urgency that made the receptionist walk it up to Monica directly. "It's not labeled," she said, frowning as she handed it to me. "But the handwriting's familiar. I already knew. Even before I peeled back the wax seal, even before I saw the letterhead, Callahan Ventures, the same firm that ghosted me after my Series A pitch 6 years ago. The same room where I stood pitching a dream, while they scrolled their phones and asked if I had a more technical co-founder. The same man who once told me, to my face, "It's just hard to sell your story." We already funded one female-led startup this quarter. And now here he was, Mars back in cursive. "Dr. Marshall, I hope this message finds you thriving," although clearly that's a given. "I watched your keynote. Impressive doesn't begin to cover it. I believe there's potential for us to build something powerful together. Callahan Ventures is shifting our strategic focus, and we'd love for you to consider leading a new equity-based fund under our umbrella. You'd have full autonomy, full backing. Think of it as reparations with interest. I know our past was complicated, but I'm hoping we can write a better future. Let's talk." SC Monica stood stiff, arms folded. "You want me to shred it?" "No," I said. "Schedule a meeting." She stared at me like I'd said I wanted to ride the freight elevator. "Again? You serious?" I nodded. "Let him come up, let him sit in the room this time." When Simon Callahan arrived, he wore a $2,000 suit, and that same rehearsed humility men like him pulled out when they realized the power dynamic had flipped. He stood when I entered, didn't offer his hand, maybe afraid I wouldn't take it. "Smart, Renee," he started, smiling too wide. "You look older," I cut in, "richer, busier, let's get to it." He chuckled. I didn't. He started flipping through a leather portfolio, pulling out projections, mock-ups, expansion plans. His voice hit all the right notes: rebranding, inclusive investing, next-gen leadership. He even used the phrase, bridging the access gap. Like he hadn't once been the one guarding the bridge. When he finished, he leaned back. "We believe your name, your voice, your leadership could anchor this." I stared at him a long moment, then leaned forward, my voice soft but surgical. "You want my face," I said. He froze. "You want my story, my scars, my speech clips and keynote buzz to dress your fund up in progress. You want to say you partnered with the same woman you once told wasn't fundable." He didn't interrupt, couldn't. I stood, walked to the window overlooking the city skyline, the city I now owned more of than he ever would. "I didn't build this to be included. I built this so we don't need your inclusion anymore." He swallowed, tried to recover. "Renee, I get it, I do. But real change takes collaboration. You want to collaborate?" He nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. I turned to face him, slow smile spreading. "Then sign over 51% of your fund, put it in my hands, let me hire, let me fire, let me rewrite everything." Silence, he blinked. "That's not how these things usually work." I shrugged. "Then maybe it's not working." Simon didn't say no, but he didn't say yes either. He just sat there, lips parted, blinking, like a man whose mirror had just cracked down the middle, like someone who'd spent too long at the top to understand what starting from the freight elevator actually meant. I left him there, didn't slam the door, didn't raise my voice, just let my silence walk louder than his money ever could. The next day we hosted our first open pitch session inside the Marshall Building's new third-floor collab. No suits, no gatekeepers, no cherry-picked, diverse candidates to meet someone else's DEI quota, just real people with real ideas. A young woman stood at the front of the line, mid-20s, maybe younger, brown skin, round glasses, denim jacket with frayed cuffs. She clutched a folder to her chest like it held her whole heart. Monica leaned in. "Her name's Zora," I smiled. "Let her in first." Zora's hands trembled slightly as she set her pitch deck on the table. I didn't think I'd make it this far," she said, glancing up nervously. "Most accelerators never even call back." "Tell me about your idea," I said gently. "It's a wellness app," she began, "but built specifically for Black girls who are caretakers, daughters, nieces, siblings, the ones holding it all down but invisible. I want to build something that sees them, tracks stress, connects them with support, helps them remember they matter too." My throat tightened. She reminded me of me, the younger version, before the grants, before the power, back when the world saw me only as useful, never brilliant. "How are you funding it now?" I asked. She glanced down. "Just me. Tips from work and braiding on the side. Nights, mostly." I nodded slowly, then reached for a blank folder on my desk, wrote a single number, slid it toward her. She read it, eyes widened, lips trembled. "Is this real?" "As real as what you just said," I told her. "You're not invisible anymore." Word spread like wildfire. Not because of PR, but because one girl told another, then a cousin, then a dorm, then a whole neighborhood. The Marshall Building wasn't just a name anymore, it was a door that stayed open, a place where freight elevator kids could build empires. Simon called again, left a voicemail. "Renee, I've reconsidered. Let's talk terms. Maybe 51% isn't out of the question after all." I didn't call back, I let Monica handle it. She knew what to say. That Friday I walked through the lobby again. Same front desk, same security post. But something had changed. The woman who once sent me to the back stood when I passed, this time with something else in her eyes. Not just recognition, respect, and a hint of apology that didn't need to be spoken. I gave her a small nod. "You all right today?" She asked softly. I am, I replied, and I think you will be too. Because the building was different now, and once you open the right kind of door, you never close it again. 6 months later, the old gold letters came down from the tower's entrance. Weston and Grange unbolted, lifted off with care. A small crowd had gathered, tenants, interns, janitors, founders, neighbors. Some just paused on their lunch break, phones raised. Others stood with something heavier in their chest. In their place, a new sign gleamed under the fall light. The Marshall Building, no tagline, no brand flourish, just the name, and what it meant now. Inside, the freight elevator still worked, but it had been restored, painted, cleaned, given lighting that didn't hum like sorrow. A plaque hung next to the buttons now. It read, "This elevator carried the ones you overlooked, and now it carries the future. We were profitable now, not wildly, but steadily." More than 30 companies had taken space in the collab since we opened. 2 had already secured funding. One, Zora's, had been featured in TechBeat as a startup redefining wellness with roots in reality. She'd cried when she saw the article, called her aunt and said, "Told you I wasn't." Crazy. That line stayed with me, because I remembered how many times I'd said the same thing. One evening, just before closing, I rode the elevator down to the lobby alone. No entourage, no fanfare. As the doors opened, a young boy, maybe 10, was staring up at the new sign above the front desk. He turned to his mother. "Who's Marshall?" She smiled. "A lady who built this place after they told her she didn't belong." "Is she rich now?" he asked. She looked thoughtful. "She's more than that," she said. "She made it so you can walk through the front door." I stepped outside and looked up at the glass tower I used to walk past like a ghost, the same building where they once asked if I was with catering, the same building where I wasn't seen until I bought it. Now it glowed in the dusk, not just with lights but with possibility. I didn't need to be everyone's inspiration. But if even one girl saw this tower and knew she didn't have to ask for permission, then it was enough, because I wasn't the delivery, I was the architect, and this time we own the elevator.